Okay, let's dive in. We're looking at a stack of material today. Articles, reports, initial findings, all focusing on a recent, just an incredibly devastating event.
Yeah, it's a really tough one. Our aim here is to sift through all this information, figure out the key facts, and try to understand the profound human impact of what happened.
We're focusing on the Air India flight AI171 crash near Ahmedabad. Happened just recently, June 12th, 2025. And reading through these sources, it's a story filled with immense sadness.
It really is. But it's important we look closely. We'll cover the lead up, the crash itself, the terrible loss of life, the emergency response, which faced huge challenges, and, the start of the investigation. All based on these sources we have.
It's difficult, but necessary. Let's try and unpack what we know unfolded.
Okay, so the basics. We're talking Air India flight AI171. It was a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, about 11 years old, registered VTANB.
And it was heading from Ahmedabad to London Gatwick, right? A long flight. Exactly. Scheduled for that long-haul trip. But the flight itself, it barely began. Takeoff was around 1:38 p.m. local time that Thursday.
And then what, just moments later?
Just 1 minute later, at 1:39 p.m., the pilot sends out a Mayday call. That's, the most serious distress signal.
A full emergency declared. And after that...
Almost immediately, silence. Just silence. Air traffic control tried to make contact again. Nothing.
Wow. That quick transition from Mayday to silence, it says so much about how sudden this must have been.
It does. And the flight tracking data, it confirms this speed. It shows a really brief climb, only up to about 625 feet. That's barely 190 meters.
625 feet.
Yeah, and then a rapid descent. The signal just disappears less than a minute after the plane even left the runway.
So this wasn't some gradual issue building up. This was catastrophic, almost instant.
That's what the sequence strongly suggests. A climb that short, the immediate Mayday, the fast drop, signal loss. It points to something failing critically, right there during takeoff. A major, likely unrecoverable failure.
Which is why the investigation, based on these reports, is immediately looking at things like engines, controls, maybe even structural integrity during that takeoff phase.
Precisely. Something went fundamentally wrong in those first critical seconds.
And the consequence. Where did the plane actually come down?
It crashed about 2 kilometers, so just over a mile, from the airport runway. And tragically, it hit a densely populated area, Magani Nagar.
Residential, right, not open fields.
Yes, residential buildings.
Yeah.
And specifically, parts of a doctor's hostel associated with the Byramji Jajib Joy Medical College and the Civil Hospital complex nearby.
God, that's awful. The reports mention eyewitness accounts. People saw it flying very low.
They did. Accounts describe seeing the plane very low, hearing multiple explosions, and then seeing these huge plumes of black smoke.
And there was video footage, too. Experts looked at that.
Yes, and something noted from that footage, which seems crucial, is the landing gear. It appeared to still be extended, and the flaps were retracted.
Which is not the configuration you'd want for climbing out after takeoff, is it?
Not at all. That setup would severely hinder its ability to gain altitude. It restricts lift significantly.
The impact itself. The reports talk about immense destruction.
Absolutely immense. It hit buildings directly, causing extensive damage, parts collapsing. Pieces of the aircraft, like the tail cone, were found lodged high up in structures.
And it hit that doctor's hostel, the dining hall, I think.
Yes, tore right into the dining hall facade. People inside, medical students having lunch completely unconnected to the flight, were directly impacted. It's just horrifying.
And then there was the fire. The plane was fueled for London.
Exactly. A huge fuel load, 125,000 liters of jet fuel. That ignited on impact, creating what the reports call a massive fire.
Which made survival almost impossible.
Virtually impossible for most on board, yes. And it made the rescue and recovery work incredibly dangerous and difficult.
The reports are quite stark about the condition of the victims because of that fire.
They are. The intense heat meant most bodies were charred beyond recognition. That's the phrase used.
Which immediately meant DNA identification.
Almost exclusively, yes. A huge, complex task right from the outset, adding another layer of trauma for the families waiting for news.
Let's talk about the human toll. The numbers are just staggering.
They are overwhelming. On board the aircraft, initial reports confirmed 241 fatalities. That was 229 passengers and 12 crew members.
Out of 242 people total on the flight.
Correct. But it didn't end there. the impact on the ground.
Yeah.
It added to the tragedy.
How many fatalities on the ground?
An additional 33 people were killed in the residential area and the medical college campus.
So that brings the total confirmed deaths to 274.
Yes, 274 lives lost, making it one of India's deadliest single-plane disasters ever.
It's almost impossible to process that number. The reports try to personalize it, mentioning some names. Dr. Nirali Patel, a Canadian dentist.
Yes, she was on board. And a British family, too. Akhil Nanabawa, his wife Hannah Vorji, and their little girl, Sarah, just 4 years old.
Oh, a 4-year-old.
It's heartbreaking. And the passenger list really shows the international nature of the flight. 169 Indian nationals, 53 British, 7 Portuguese, 1 Canadian.
And the ground victims included those medical students.
At least 5 medical students were among those killed in the hostel dining hall. It just shows how wide the ripples of grief spread. So many communities affected.
But amidst all this loss, there's this one detail that just stands out. The reports confirm there was a sole survivor.
Yes, quite incredibly. Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, a 40-year-old British national. He was in seat 11A.
What did he recall? His account must be terrifying.
It is. He described from the hospital feeling the plane sort of get stuck after takeoff. Lights flickered, he felt acceleration, but no sense of climbing.
And then
Then he said the plane just suddenly split apart. He was ejected, thrown clear, moments before a massive explosion.
I can't even imagine. He actually said, "I still cannot believe how I made it out alive."
Understandably. He had burns, other injuries, but the reports confirmed he was stable, out of immediate danger.
Is there any explanation in the reports for how someone could survive that, beyond sheer luck?
Well, crash investigators look at these things. His seat, 11A, is often near an exit, over the wing box area, which can be structurally stronger. And the specific way the plane broke up, the angle of impact, it might have created what they call a survivability pocket, just where he was.
So a combination of improbable factors aligning.
Exactly. Seat location, the breakup sequence, maybe the impact angle, him remaining conscious.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary confluence of events.
But even that miracle has such a tragic shadow, his brother.
Yes, that's the heartbreaking part. His brother, Ajay, was also on the flight, but in a different seat. He didn't survive.
So he survives, but loses his brother right there. The emotional toll.
Unimaginable. The reports mention he was disoriented, shaken naturally, and they touch on the psychological burden sole survivors often carry, the trauma, survivor's guilt.
While he survived, hundreds of other families were facing this agonizing wait at the hospital.
That's right. The scene described at the civil hospital in Ahmedabad. Hundreds of relatives, desperate for any news, needing to provide DNA samples because visual identification was impossible for almost everyone.
How many could be identified visually?
Only 8, according to the reports. The vast majority required DNA matching, which meant a wait of 48 to 72 hours for results. Just agonizing uncertainty.
Yeah, the parents of one victim, Roger Christian, were quoted voicing their grief and calling for answers, for accountability. You feel that deep need for understanding in the midst of such pain.
Absolutely.
What about the emergency response itself? Did help arrive quickly?
The reports indicate yes, mobilization was very rapid. NDRF, the Disaster Response Force, fire brigades, Army, police, specialized units like NFG commandos, forensic teams, aviation authorities. They were all dispatched quickly. An operational control room was set up straight away.
But they faced huge challenges on site.
Immense challenges. The number one issue, as we discussed, was that massive fire fueled by the jet fuel. It made everything incredibly dangerous and hampered rescue attempts.
And the condition of the site. Charred wreckage, debris everywhere.
Exactly. Fragmented wreckage and the condition of the victims made recovery and identification incredibly difficult.
So despite the fast response, the nature of the crash itself created overwhelming obstacles.
It really did. The scale of the fire and the devastation just presented brutal challenges for everyone involved on the ground.
Okay, let's shift to the investigation. Who's leading that?
India's AAIB, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, is in charge. But they have international help, which is standard practice. The U.S., NTSB, and FAA, the U.K.'s AAIB, plus Boeing and GE, the engine maker.
And crucially, they found the black boxes.
Yes, very quickly. Both the flight data recorder, FDR, and the cockpit voice recorder, CVR, were recovered the next day, June 13th. That's vital.
So what are the initial theories or areas they're focusing on, according to the reports?
Well, they're looking closely at those flap settings we mentioned, engine power, any cockpit alarms that might have sounded, and whether the data the pilots entered, things like temperature, weight, fuel load, was accurate.
And that observation about the landing gear down in flaps retracted from the video. That's a big focus.
Seems to be, yes. Experts cited in the reports flagged the configuration as highly problematic for climb, suggesting it needs close examination.
This crash is significant beyond just this flight, isn't it? Because of the aircraft type.
It is. It's the first fatal crash involving a Boeing 787 Dreamliner since it started flying commercially.
And the 787 has had some history, right? Battery issues years ago.
It did. Grounded globally for a while in 2013 over lithium-ion battery fires. And more recently, just this year, 2024, there were whistleblower claims from a Boeing engineer about alleged structural flaws, particularly regarding gaps between fuselage sections not being filled properly during assembly.
Did Boeing respond to those?
Boeing refuted the whistleblower's claims about immediate safety risks, but the reports note the FAA had previously halted 787 deliveries between 2021 and 2022 to address similar manufacturing quality issues related to fuselage gaps. So there's existing context there.
And India's aviation authority, the DGCA, they reacted quickly after this crash.
Very quickly. They mandated enhanced safety checks on Air India's entire 787 fleet, checks that go beyond routine maintenance. It's just a heightened level of regulatory concern.
So this investigation could have ripples far beyond just AI171.
Absolutely. Given the context, this crash is likely to prompt a much wider, perhaps global, reevaluation of the 787 safety record and manufacturing quality control. We could see more inspections or directives worldwide.
What about the impact on Air India itself? This must be a huge blow, especially with the Tata Group trying to turn things around.
A severe setback, yes. The reports mention it disrupts their transformation plans and obviously requires huge resources to manage the aftermath, the investigation, compensation, supporting families, repairs.
Tata's response has been quite prominent, though, the compensation offer.
Yes, Eurocore per deceased family, which is roughly 10 million Indian rupees or around 120,000 USD, plus covering medical costs for the survivor and helping rebuild the damaged hostel.
Is that seen as a significant response?
The report suggests it's seen as proactive and substantial. Along with the insurance regulator pushing for faster claim payouts, it's viewed as a major test of Tata's handling of a crisis in the newly privatized Air India. Perhaps a contrast to how things might have unfolded in the past.
And Air India is retiring the flight number, AI171.
Yes, replacing it with AI159 from June 17th. It's a common practice in the industry after a major tragedy, a mark of respect.
But ultimately, all of this, the money, the investigation, the changes, it all comes back to the human cost, doesn't it? The 274 lives.
Absolutely. Every action taken now stems from that immense, unimaginable loss felt by so many families.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it's a story of a catastrophe that happened with shocking speed. A flight lasting just moments, ending in this devastating loss of life on the plane and on the ground.
And the story of Vishwas Kumar Ramesh, the sole survivor, it's remarkable, almost unbelievable, but it also throws into sharp relief the fragility of life and the profound, complex grief of surviving when a loved one, like his brother, does not.
The aftermath, too, sounds incredibly challenging. The fire, the condition of the victims, that awful wait for identification. It highlights how the trauma extends long after the initial event.
Definitely. And the investigation now carries a heavy weight. Finding out why this happened is crucial, not just for the family seeking answers, but for preventing future tragedies, potentially leading to significant changes in aviation safety, especially for the 787.
Going through these sources really helps you grasp the sheer scale of it all, the technical complexity, the immediate horror, and the lasting human impact.
As the investigation unfolds and the industry reflects, this look at the AI-171 tragedy is a stark reminder of why the pursuit of aviation safety is so relentless and how deeply these events affect so many lives.
It really makes you think. What stands out most to you after going through all this? Is it the terrifying speed, those individual stories behind the numbers? Or maybe the immense difficulty of the response and the long road ahead? It's certainly a lot to process.